college campuses, certain
Oh,
types of
okay.
activities they do on college campuses. And and which story did I want to give to you? Um, Again, we're saying I have to remember which story I wanted to say, but he wanted to show everybody. My father, Rabbi London, wanted to show everybody that it can be done. People thought that you have someone come from a non-religious home um, to go to yeshiva, that they could become something, really, the real, like everybody else. He felt, you know, he believed that the guys could do it. He never called his students Baal Tshuva. He called them late starters. They
I
were
like
late
that.
starters, and he felt
A
and he
very,
felt that
very late starter.
okay, and then his students, everybody the best yeshivas wanted his students, meaning to say, if you're not, you could do it. You could become great. Even if a person um, starts late in life, and therefore, you have Rabbi Akiva who started at 40, and that was him. He had a very big. And he always would say, it's always about moving forward, never looking back. A lot of people look
Right,
back. It's always about
right.
what am I doing? What am I doing today? It's about, he never would like to talk about what he accomplished in the past. He wasn't interested in what he past is the past. Now, what am I doing today? How do you like that idea, Asaf?
All right. Very nice.
Okay, so we're on 41a. We started a Gemara yesterday, fascinating Gemara with Rav Zera. That Rav Zera said that I saw Rabbi Vohu, that he placed his hand um, facing his lower bottom, his lower private part. He didn't know if he touched his private part or not. The Gemara says, isn't it obvious that he didn't touch his private part? Because there's an issue of a person um, would touch one atom. It might, if it leads to, it could lead to wasted seed, and therefore definitely he did not touch it. Um, So meaning he's talking about when he saw his rabbi when he was bathing, and when he was bathing, he covered his front bottom out of modesty. But the question was, did he touch the front bottom or not? And the Gemara wanted to say, what do you mean? It's obviously he would not have touched it because it could lead to possibly wasted seed. So the Gemara says that the question of whether maybe he touched it or not is because being that he's taking this that he's washing and bathing in the river, and it's possible that he might he should that he's occupied in that action. So maybe when he's occupied in that action, he's not going to he's not going to have that. Maybe he's preoccupied. Maybe there's not a concern that he's going to think about having the wrong thoughts that would lead to possible um, wasted seed. The Gemara said, Amabaye, that's what we'll look to that piece. Amabaye, that's will Amabaye on 41A1, the big first column. Amabaye. Abaye says, Asu'u kivaloshet. Abavo's case, when Zera saw Abavo put his hand facing his bottom because he wanted to cover it because of modesty, um, it was, and the question was, did he actually touch it? Is because it's similar to the case of Beloshet. We have a Mishnah in Avodah Zarah. Not the Mishnah. Beloshet, Adam, if you, first of all, good morning again. If you want to send to the group that want. Beloshet is an army, a non-Jewish army. Um, it's called Beloshet. It's like they go ahead and they search out the city. They want to take, a lot of times they take spoils. They take, when they go through a city. And they came into the city. They came into a Jewish city, and Chaviot, and they even say they came into the city, the house of the Jews, and B'shas Shalom, if they came in at a time of peace, let's say it's the United States Army coming in to the city of one of the cities in the United States during a time of peace, um, and there's no fear that the enemy is going to come on them because it's time of peace, right? So at the time of peace, everything is quiet. So then chaviyot tuchot, if there are open barrels of wine in the house of surot, those open barrels, a non-Jew, if you have wine that's not cooked wine, the non-Jew handles it, moves it, there's a concern that maybe he would pour some things, pour some of the wine, shake the wine for avodah zarah, for idols. So if the barrel is opened, there's a concern, morning, that he might go ahead and take some of the wine because it's time of peace. He's not preoccupied with the enemy. So therefore, now we know if the wine was cooked wine, they will not use cooked wine for idols, to pour to idols. That's why at weddings, right, all the wines at weddings are called ayayin mevushal, right, Adam? They're cooked wines. Because that's why you could have a waiter who's not Jewish pour you wine at a wedding. Because it's not cooked wine, because it's cooked wine. Cooked wine, they will not pour for idols. Yes.
Why do we have to keep that now, though, if that's not thinking?
Right. So it could be that in order, also there might also be there might be other reasons for it. Perhaps, I mean, I would say that you would need to have a court. Sometimes there's an enactment that was made that you need to have a court that's greater. Good morning, in wisdom and number to say that enactment doesn't apply anymore. Maybe could be sometimes there's certain enactments that unless you have a new court that's to say that to undo that. I mean, there was an enactment that says that if non-Jewish people handle your wine, and the wine was non-cooked wine, that wine is forbidden. Now, so even though today most of the non-Jewish people, I mean, maybe the Indians, maybe they serve the Buddha. There might be certain people today that still worship idols,
Right, right.
and there might be people that pour wine to idols. That was a common way of service, I presume, to the idols, like to take something which is very good, like wine, and you just pour it. That was the way of service. Even though today we don't, that could be one of the reasons why. There might be another reason, perhaps. I wonder if it's also connected to intermarriage, that we want to create some sort of buffer, some sort of, I wonder, but that I have to look up. But the main reason seems to be because of idol.
Yeah.
But
Seems like nowadays there's all these accumulated, takanot, but there's no way to remove them.
Right.
Because there's no common, there's traditions that are accepted by all Jewish people, but you could never change those traditions today.
Right. But you're saying there's certain enactments that this was an enactment. The general rule is if an enactment was made, to undo the enactment, you need to have a court. Certain enactments were made in a way that if the reason goes away, the whole thing goes away.
Oh, I see. But
certain enactments were made in a way that even if the reason goes away, you still need a official court to a greater court, a greater Supreme Court, or whatever it is, to say we are undoing this enactment.
Like the
Right, or some sort of court which is greater than the previous court that made the enactment, in wisdom and I think in wisdom and in numbers. You need to have such an amazing court, and we don't have, and no court will ever feel that they are greater than that
Right.
court that made the enactment, maybe 2,000 years ago. So therefore, it's from a legal point of view, there might, but at the end of the day, you know, keep it, it's not going to really, maybe it's not really hurting anyone in a real, I don't know, in a real sense. It just maybe it's an extra thing that they have that they can't do, and they'll be rewarded for keeping the
Right.
laws, and maybe also the fact that they remember there was such an enactment is also helpful for people to remind themselves about how staying away from avodah zarah, staying away from idol, and how to separate us from the non-Jewish world, that to keep us be careful. Like I said, like I could be. I think the idea of intermarriage also might play a role, because if he goes ahead and he handles the wine and we drink from that wine that he handled, it also could lead to perhaps and therefore the wine is one of those things that people drink, and they get merry, and they get social. It gets certain socialization with the non-Jewish world, because I can't drink there. They can't pour me wine that's non-cooked wine. So it could be that reason. I have to look at the Aruch HaShulchan. If you can remind me, because I think maybe the analogy will make what we get. Right. So if that's also part of the rule, so if you're gonna have to give me some homework, Adam, if you don't mind. If that's also part of the rule, in addition to the avodah zarah, but it's also serving as a protection that we shouldn't intermarry. That that girl, I can't go out. I want to go out with that girl, or the girl's going to want to pour me, that non-Jewish girl's going to want to pour me a nice cup of wine. I can't drink that cup of wine if it was non-cooked. So that's going to say, hey, it's going to keep a certain separation, right? So that's what I'm. But again, I have to verify that that's also part of that. That's my homework that I have to do. Now, so the Gemara says, Ezra, you got it. We are on 41A1. We're in the first column, towards the bottom, by Amma Abaye Asur Kevoloshet, right? You see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Amma Abaye Asur Kevoloshet, because he says, we were saying about that when that army comes to the city, and so it says, so if the barrels of wine, so I guess everyone has to remember that. It's very important that if anybody ever's at a table, they're home, and there's a non-Jew at the table, you got to make sure that the wine is cooked wine. Remember that. Has to be cooked wine, because if the wine is non-cooked wine, the Gentile pours that wine, then I can't drink that wine, right? So that's what we have to be aware of. Anytime you're with a Gentile and there's wine at the table, and if it's non-cooked wine, it's an issue. So therefore that's why, like I said, that's why everybody is very careful at weddings. That's one of the jobs of the mashgiach, is to make sure that the wine is cooked wine. So that's beware of, you might go to an event, and might go to someone's house, they might not be aware of the law. I'm gonna say it says kosher wine, but you have to read the label. The label will say mevushal, cooked, or will say eina mevushal, or non-cooked. You will see that, Adam, on the label. You have to look at the label. Okay, good morning, Morris. Great to see you. So the Gemara says, Bishat Muhammad, if it's a time of war, and it's a time of war, and the army comes into the city, and they come into your house, Elu ve'elu mutarot. Even the barrels that are open, it's fine. You don't have to be worried that the non-Jewish army officer that came into your house, and you had a barrel of wine open. Do you think maybe he poured poured some of that wine shook up the wine for the idols or pour it for the idols. He says, you don't have to be afraid. There's no time during the time, we're on 41A1, first column towards the bottom. There's no time to pour for Avodah Zarah when a person's preoccupied with war. People are not thinking about pouring to Avodah Zarah at that time. They're worried about getting their arms and getting their, hiding from the enemy or on the move. Since the soldiers are scared during the time of the war, they don't pour to Avodah Zarah. Hachinami kiven de ba'id lo atila harurei. Since the rabbi is scared because he's washing in the river. When you're washing in the river, you don't want to get flooded away, right? You don't want to go. If the river is running if it's a strong river, you got to be careful. You don't want to get swept up in the river when you're washing in the river. So even if he would touch his private part, there's no concern, perhaps, that he's going to come to have thoughts, right? People have to be very careful. We're not allowed to do things that are going to create us to have thoughts that could lead to wasted seed, which, today's day and age, when they have all the pictures that people send on, inappropriate pictures, inappropriate advertisements. So if people look at them, that can bring them to thoughts that could lead to problems. So this is based on our Gemara that we're learning over here. We have to be aware that we can't be looking at those advertisements. Of course, it's best is we should have a filter that those advertisements can't come to us. I'll just share a wild story that I once borrowed somebody's phone. And while I was borrowing the phone, a very inappropriate picture showed up on the phone. So what do I do? Morris, you hear my question? What do I do? Knowing me. Oh, very good. So I'll tell you what I did. Tell me if you like what I did. Ezra, you tell me if you like what I did. I did. I said I have to do something. Morris said, knowing me, but the rabbi, as a rabbi, you have responsibility. And even if you're not a rabbi, Ezra, you would have to do something to help the guy. Everybody's responsible. Well, you're responsible for me, Adam. You're responsible for every Jew. So I said to the person the following. You have to, and by the way, you have to tell the person, you have to tell him that he should not send you those pictures. You have to tell him. Well, I don't remember what I told him years ago. I said, you got to tell him that he shouldn't. Good morning. Good morning. Well, something like that. I didn't say that he was involved in any way. I said, it's not right that the guy is sending you these pictures. You got to tell him. I don't know. Oh, he says, I always tell him don't send me. I don't know what he told me back. But the bottom line is, it's an issue. There's a big issue, and and we're living in a time period that this is what the advertisements do, and they try to get the people to look at things they shouldn't look at. And now, based on our Gemara, here we have a whole discussion in our Gemara that the rabbi, when he bathed in the river, and he covered his front. He covered his front because of modesty. Did he also touch it? Or did he not touch it? And the issue here is, would it be a problem if he would have touched it because maybe it would have led to thoughts that are inappropriate? Or maybe because he's so busy in the washing and he's afraid of the river, he's going to be too preoccupied that it could lead to thoughts, right? This is the discussion of our Gemara. So what happens today when people actually pay attention to things that they shouldn't be paying attention to, definitely could lead to inappropriate thoughts and could lead to wasted stuff. So therefore, this Gemara should just be a source of teaching us how we have to be careful not to do anything that could lead to inappropriate thoughts, and inappropriate thoughts could lead to wasted seed. So that is, I think, there's a big lesson we can extrapolate, if that's the right word, from this Gemara, which is, you know, I feel bad for the people of this generation, of the challenges that people have. Somebody told me last night that people have AI boyfriends. I was like blown away. I don't know if I should publicize it because I don't know if people should have ideas in the world should know about it. But I feel so bad for the people. I feel so bad. I'm going to tell you, I'm just sharing it's maybe less than 15 hours, less than 12 hours. It's less than 12 hours since I heard this last night. I'm still a little bit knocked off my seat. Morris, hear what I'm saying? It's crazy. Ezra, am I right? Adam,
It's filling a lot of roles.
yeah, but this is a part of this, but this is ruining the people. One lady, one young Jewish religious girl said, I don't know, the AI boyfriend is setting such a standard for I don't know if I could ever get my husband. She's single. What? She's in a Sephardi religious girl, I think. She's single. And I'm not blaming Sephardim. It's not Sephardim. It's not Ashkenazim. It's just I'm just giving you reality. And she said that she doesn't know if her husband. It's creating a standard. It's just crazy. It's holding people back. It's giving them impressions, not real life, fantasy world. They're playing with fantasy, but people are signing themselves up and they're doing these crazy things. I told the person who told me the story, you got to go back to that young lady, and you got to say something to her. You got to say that this is not good. This is not. You have to know how to say it, right, Ezra? Adam, I feel bad for the generation, but you know what? They're signing themselves up for it. No one forced their hand. She doesn't have to do it. And she knows it's a joke. It's a this. Terrible.
Well, she's doing it
For fun.
She's using AI nutritionist. Maybe that's okay. And then she has a bad day. Next thing you know, things can escalate just like with humans. Things can escalate.
Yeah, am I allowed to say this in public? It's not a problem, right? Even just bringing it to the word, just talking about it, you know.
Everyone knows
It's not a secret, but it's crazy.
I mean, there's ads on the subway for AI friend. Like, I don't know, you see them. They're like that's an ad campaign.
Morris, we got to help the people. We got to help the people. So there's a word, Rahmanis. I feel so bad for the people. This is what they do. We have AI boyfriends. This is what life's about. It's crazy. You got to get married. She got to get married. She got to get married to a real person. She can't give these crazy ideas in her mind. Not all Sephardi girls are doing this. Don't get nervous, guys. You know what I'm saying? But it starts as a joke and then it becomes they're playing with fire. But we got to control ourselves. But if we don't learn Torah, teach us we learn it. We see how. Wait, it's not going to cause problems. It's not going to lead to inappropriate things. It starts maybe like a joke, and who knows what the AI boyfriend, where that's headed also. There's no stopping. It's like it starts, like looks innocent in a certain sense, or what, even though it's not so, it looks innocent to me. But you get what I'm saying. I had to share, forgive me for sharing that, but I think it's important. And okay, let's continue. And by the way, there was in Lakewood, New Jersey, the rabbis are talking about the issues of AI. They're talking about the issues of AI, and they want to protect the people. They're very concerned for the people.
They're saying like two things. One, it's like what we're talking about. Like just using it can be hazardous to who you are as a person. Like for whatever reason, like you can get, it can just be addictive. Like watching TV is discouraged as well because it's like you'll sit there, you'd spend an hour playing with photos, but then they're also saying then there's the Torah aspect of it, where it's like with anything else it advises on, it gives you like quick, easy answers.
It might be accurate. It's not Torah. It's Torah instead of the rabbi.
Yeah,
it's taking the place of a rabbi.
Process. Like even if someone were to, be without a rabbi and dig through the books themselves. It's a different kind of process. And it's the same thing that all of the teachers in society are saying, that it's like we have a learning process, like math or chemistry. It's not just what's the chemical, there's some process to it, and we especially have a process.
Right. 100%.
But if there are some useful purpose, like if I want to ask, like, what's the right bracha, usually it's going to be right about that.
Okay. But like you said, but even the right bracha, it should give you a source and you can look up the source.
Right.
Okay. We'll continue in the Gemara. So the Gemara says, Hacha might be a tuta. So the Gemara says, what is the fear over here? That the rabbi is preoccupied, that he might not come to thought, and appropriate thought. Biuta de Nahara. It's the fear of the river, because he's afraid he shouldn't get swept away with the river. So he's not. So maybe the rabbi would not be concerned when he covers his front bottom out of modesty. He might not be concerned that even if he would touch that part. So the Gemara says, "Aini, is that so? Are you allowed to cover? How was the rabbi allowed to cover his front bottom?" Wait, are you showing that you're ashamed of the circumcision? It looks like it looks like you are ashamed of the circumcision. So it seems like it's not appropriate to cover the area of where the circumcision is. So therefore, because it looks like you're embarrassed that you're circumcised. So the Gemara says, Lo kasha. That which we said is kinachit. When you go down to the river, when you're facing the river, and there's no issue of modesty, you're not covering it for modesty purposes. So why are you covering the area of the circumcision, that front bottom, when nobody could see it? Now you could say maybe you're in front of Hashem. Maybe that's why you're covering it, because you're always modest. But yet the Gemara seems to say, but you out of respect for the circumcision, you should not cover that front because it looks like you're ashamed of the circumcision. But when you cover, when the conduct of Rabavohu, when he went up, meaning he did not cover the front bottom when he went down into the river, because nobody was looking. Since no one was looking, it's not an issue so much of modesty, which I'm questioning. I'm asking the question, because modesty is even when nobody's looking. It doesn't have to be someone's looking. But when he went up, so then you're in front of the people. So therefore, there's much more of modesty at that point, and therefore he has a right to cover that area. It doesn't look like he's just shamed of his circumcision. That's why he's covering. He's covering because of modesty. So at that point, when he's covering his modesty, he has to be careful that he was careful not to touch that area as well. The Rava Shachi. Rava, when he would go up and down from the water, from the river, he would bend his body. He would bend a little bit, like instead of standing so open, like bending, it's like a certain way of covering. So, and again, he seems like what I was saying, that even when he went down to the river, nobody's watching when he went down. He also covered him, but he didn't cover himself, put his hands to block it. Rather, he actually bent down. But Rav Zera Zakif. Rav Zera, when he went up and down, he held, no, you got to go ahead, and he stood tall. He didn't want to bend down. He didn't want to show as if he's ashamed of his circumcision. Good morning. But the Rabbanan de Ravashi, but the rabbis in the Beit Midrash of Ravashi, when they went down to the river, they didn't bend. They said they stood tall, but they're not facing anybody when they go. The front is not facing everyone when they went down to the river. So Zakfei, they stood tall. and therefore, because they didn't want to cover their front bottom because that would look like they're ashamed of the circumcision, and they're not in front of anybody. So why she shouldn't cover it? But when they got up, when they went up from the river where they're facing people, so then shachi they bent down. Okay, so we see. So that's the Gemara's question. When he said the Gemara's understanding that when the rabbi went down to the river, he did not cover his front bottom. He only covered his front bottom when he came out of the river, walking out facing the people, and that was the question that he actually touched that area or not. Rav Zera, have they come mishtamim with Rav Yehuda? Rav Zera was trying to avoid Rav Yehuda. Why should he avoid Rav Yehuda? Rav Yehuda is his rabbi. You don't want to avoid your rabbi, right? That's contrary. It's a mitzvah to be connected with the rabbi, right? It's one of the 613 mitzvot to connect with the rabbi, right? To connect with Talmidei Chachamim. So Rav Zera, and by the way, there's a mitzvah. We have people in the business world to do business with Talmidei Chachamim. It's a mitzvah to engage in business with them, do business with them, Torah scholars. Rav Zera, to eat with them, the Rambam says, to drink with them, to connect with them. The more connection you have, you go to a wedding, right? It's open seating, right? The weddings are open seating, right? You have an opportunity to sit down next to a rabbi or not next to a rabbi. Go sit down next to the rabbi. I'm encouraging you. Good morning, Boker Tov. To sit down next to the rabbi, because if you sit down next to the rabbi, we have a few more minutes left to our class. If you're available, you could join. 7:30 minyan is upstairs. And if you sit down next to the rabbi, you get a mitzvah. Okay. So Rav Zera have a kamishtamit Rav Yehuda. Rav Zera, he avoided the rabbi. Why? The Ba'ila Mesak Arid Yisrael. Rav Zera wanted to go to the land of Israel. He was in Bavel, and he wanted to go to the land of Israel. And he was concerned that Rabbi Yehuda would say not to go up. He was concerned because Rabbi Yehuda was of the opinion that you can't, until Mashiach comes, you can't go up, you can't leave Bavel, to go to Eretz Yisrael, to the Holy Land. Rabbi Yehuda, Kol ha'oleh Bavel Eretz Yisrael, anybody who leaves Bavel to go to Eretz Yisrael, over ba'aseh, he's violating a rabbinic enactment. And I say, a positive came from the rabbis, Shenema and Yirmiyah says, Bavel Yavu, they're going to come, the Jewish people are going to go to Bavel, they're going to go to exile in Bavel, V'shama you. And they're going to be there until I remember them, and I bring them back to Eretz Yisrael. And Rabbi Yehuda understood that there's a gezerah, that there's a decree that the Jewish people can't leave so to speak, Bavel, which was probably what it symbolized, the exile, until Mashiach comes. You're stuck. You're stuck until Mashiach comes. That's how Rashi seems to understand. So therefore, I want to avoid him. Now, obviously, he disagreed. He had a different understanding of the pasuk. That the pasuk is referring to some of the utensils of the Beit HaMikdash that went to exile. That some of those utensils won't come back until Hashem will bring the Jewish people back to Eretz Yisrael. So, but even though he wants to avoid him, because he's afraid he's gonna tell him, I'm not letting you go to Eretz Yisrael. Rav Zera said, Izel ve'eshma minei milta. I want to hear something before I go. I want to hear a halacha from the rabbi. I want to hear, the last before I go. I want to hear something. Azal, Ashimi was probably, he stayed away from the rabbi for a certain amount of time because he felt the rabbi might say something to him not to go to Israel, but he wanted to hear something from him. Azal ashkechei dekoy beini. Rav Zera found Rabbi Yehuda was standing by the bathhouse. V'kama l'shamei, and he told his gabbai, he told his attendant. What did he tell him? He told them, Havili neter. bring me some sort of soap. Havali masreik, bring me a comb. And pischu, now the Gemara is going to say what is unique about that he, anything, and Rabbi is going to say, I learned something from this. We'll see tomorrow what's unique about what he said to bring him a comb or bring him some soap. What's the lesson that he's going to learn from that? I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. Thank you all for joining the minyan. Okay, there's learning here. There's going to be learning here, and there's also a minyan upstairs. A great day, everybody. Asaf, take care.